Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Polly Peters, and I am here to represent the Adult Ed Council. And we are here this morning to talk about Ultreia. And I will leave it up to the panel to have them define that and talk to you about that. And we are joined by many members that went on the 2024 pilgrimage to Camino de Santiago.
My name is Joe Morrow, Associate Pastor for Evangelism and Community Engagement here at Fourth, and I'm privileged to be with this distinguished panel of pilgrims who were brave enough to decide to walk with me on the Camino de Santiago last year in June of 2024. And we're going to take this time this morning to share with you some reflections that we have on the journey that we took together. We hope that it may inspire you perhaps to walk the Camino de Santiago, but also to consider how the everyday movement that you are involved in can be a part of your faith pilgrimage, your pilgrimage to grow in faith, in hope, and in love, as Scripture tells it. So what I'll do, just to begin, is to give you a little bit of background about the Camino de Santiago. And then we're going to have a series of questions that will allow each of our panelists to share their own reflections on this journey and what it meant to them, the ups and downs of it, fun times, humor-filled times, but also challenging times as well. So to begin, we titled this talk today, Ultreia, which is a very popular saying on the Camino. It means further and beyond, and let's go. So it's kind of a combination of two Latin words that encourage us to keep moving, to keep propelling ourselves forward, to be led forward in the theological sense by the Holy Spirit. So often pilgrims will encourage each other in their walk by saying, Ultreia, keep going, keep walking a little bit further. It's not only a direction, but it's a state of mind. So Ultreia is the title that we've given our session today. So what is a pilgrimage? Many of you may have been on pilgrimages of various types, and they can be as simple as Brett Webb Mitchell says, as a holy hike or a sacred walk. It could be around your block. It could be around your city. It could be out in the countryside, or it could be in another part of the world. In this case, it's important to know that a pilgrimage theologically is an engagement of the body, of the mind, and of the spirit. And the way that I like to think about it in terms of our Camino journey is that pilgrimage is a journey of our spirit, working through all sorts of various struggles and challenges and feats, trying to understand where God in the Spirit is leading us in life, where we've been going right and where we've been going wrong. It's this movement in the spirit and in the mind, and our body is catching up with that journey. So our bodies are teaching us things about that journey. And if you think about it, whether you're a toddler who's just learning how to walk, or you're someone who's going through the experience of hospice and leaving this life, your body is going through a journey as well as your mind and your spirit, and they're in dialogue with each other. That's the nature of pilgrimage. So what's the Camino de Santiago? It's a series of pilgrimage routes that are at least 1,200 years old, leading to the legendary resting place of James, son of Zebedee, a disciple of Jesus. He was the second of the disciples to die, and the first as a martyr. In 44 CE, as much as we know, James was martyred, beheaded by Herod for his faith. And so the legend goes that his followers took his bones. Back in those days, it was very common for a body to be buried, and then you come back a year later and you collect those bones, and then you go with them someplace. You bury them someplace. So in this case, his followers took James all the way across the Mediterranean up into Spain in Galicia, which is in the northwest corner of Spain, which was at that time in the if you have a Roman understanding of the world, it was at that time the edge of the known world. And so they brought James to the end of the earth. And then they buried his bones there, created a tomb, and his followers guarded that tomb before they died. And then for centuries, the tomb's location was lost, and then found again in the time of Alfonso II in the 9th century. And at that time, the Iberian Peninsula was primarily controlled by the Moorish Empire, which came from North Africa. It's an Islamic empire. And as you might imagine, Christians in the north felt threatened by that empire. And the pilgrimage route was a way of reclaiming that land as a land that is precious, sacred, and holy to Christians. And the pilgrimage site allowed pilgrims to kind of get through Moorish territory to be able to see the bones of St. James. So eventually there was a small church built around it, and then centuries later, in I think the 11th century, a larger cathedral, which is now the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela. So that's a little bit of background about how we got the Camino that we went on last year. This is, and yep, it's coming up now, a great representation of all the various routes that you could take into Santiago. And in our case, we went up the coastline on the left-hand side of that map on the Camino Portugues, which actually runs from Lisbon all the way up to Santiago. We spent 6 days on that route, but as you can see, there are many routes one can take. So if you're interested in the Camino, the question is, which one? Which route? Each route comes with its own rewards and challenges, different scenery, a different sense of community, depending on where you travel and what time of year.
You did the green one?
Yes, so if you look, if we go back, see if I can stand up and show you, we went on this route. So from Lisbon, it goes up to Porto, and then we took the oceanfront route of the Camino Portugues. So around the coast up to Vigo and then inward into Santiago. So just to give you a sense of our mileage from day to day, or kilometers, if you put yourself in the frame of those who are in Europe. We started out in Bayona, which is a coastal city. Then we moved on to Vigo, to Arcad, to Pontevedra, Caldas de Reis, Padrón, and then Santiago. And so you can see the first 2 days were really long mileage, and then it kind of shortened in the middle of our journey to give us more of a day of relative rest. Right? They're all laughing at me, relative rest. And then the mileage goes back up again as we got closer to Santiago. We wanted to try to do the journey in about 6 days, 7 days, so that it was convenient for people who are working and have other things going on in their lives. Those who do whole routes on the Camino will typically do them for 30 or 40 days. So one route will take at least a month to do, but we did a portion of the Camino Portugués. 128 kilometers. Again, these are some other visuals of our route. You can see how we started from the coast and then we go inward. This is also a really nice depiction of the route because it also gives you a sense of the elevation changes, which, I mean, you can't really see the meters there, so it's a little deceptive, but there's not a wide range of meters between these days. It's just there are a lot of hills. But it's not like you're going, like 500 or 1,000 meter change from day to day. But there were hills. It may have felt like you were going 1,000 meters on one day and then 500 on the next, but relatively flat compared with other routes. Okay? So I wanted just to give you all a little bit of a pictorial depiction of what each day felt like, and then I'm going to ask our panelists to share their reflections. And if you all want to go back to any of these photos as you're talking about your experience, feel free to let me know and I can click back to these. But this was day one in Bayona. As you can see, a lovely, beautiful coastline. You can also see the typical pilgrim's meal, which you'll find in every town has a pilgrim special when it comes to food and drink. So in this case, it was soup and paella, which is a wonderful rice dish mixed with sometimes meat, sometimes seafood. And that's all of us. We were 18 in total. Some of us are Fourth Church members. Some of us are Presbyterians from other parts of the U.S., D.C., Miami, and Arizona. And some of us are not Presbyterians at all. But I love the range and the diversity of our group. We were all seekers and we're all pilgrims, no matter what our background is, with religion or other social backgrounds that we have. So that was the first day, Bayona to Vigo. Day two, Vigo to Arcade. Show some photos here. And this was, I think, our first day in the forest. So we started to turn inward, and it offered some beautiful landscapes. And as you can see, every day is filled not only with trekking, but with meal sharing for breakfast, lunch, and for dinner. This is day three, Arcade to Pontevedra. Actually, kind of a little bit of day two end as well. And that on the other side, which unfortunately I don't think you can see because of the Zoom menu, but that hike was, I think, one of the most strenuous hikes of the entire Camino experience on the far left-hand side. So you all were quite brave to take that detour. We move on to Pontevedra to Caldas Reis. Caldas de Reis, so you can't see it here, was a town that had thermal baths. And there are natural thermal springs in that town, and so a lot of pilgrims.
Fred's going to fix the fire issue. You can
Oh,
keep talking,
sorry.
but he's going to meddle for a minute.
And in Caldas de Reis, there are a lot of natural thermal springs, and those springs gave us an opportunity for refreshment for some of our pilgrims who had to stop and take a day of rest, and so they were able to bask in those thermal springs, and it was quite lovely. But we passed that day, and actually many days, around vineyards. This is wine country in northwest Spain, and so there's some beautiful vineyards, and of course you get to taste some of those local wines every night for dinner.
What kind of wine was it?
Albarino! I think that was the way you put it, Tony, right? Let me skip to the next day. There we go. This was to Padron, so Camino de Reyes to Padron, and that's the penultimate day. This was kind of a rainy day, but beautiful streams and rivers, small towns that we go through. I love that picture, that photo on the upper left-hand side. It's a stop sign, and if you look closely, it says complaining underneath it. So people are, stop complaining, which is what pilgrims do when you get to the penultimate day on your way into Santiago. You can also see on the upper right-hand side, there are many shrines of sorts, places where people will leave rocks, where they will leave letters, ribbons, that represent all sorts of things. They can represent burdens that people are walking with, and they put them down to give them up to God. But they can be letters to friends. They can be signs of goodwill for other pilgrims. Sometimes people put their shells and leave them there as well. So you'll find these kind of makeshift memorials and shrines all over the Camino routes. And then our last day, Padron to Santiago, one of the most arduous days when it came to walking. Cold and rainy. Ah, we see two of us, yes? Jeannie and Cynthia. It was one of the most arduous days. It was rainy. It was, about 40 to 50 degrees?
For 8 hours.
Yeah, for 8 hours straight. And this is actually the raincoat that I wore that day, which is, it's gone through a lot of rain, for sure. But
you gave up. You gave up on trying to stay covered.
I mean, we were all soaked. I mean, I was even soaked through this thing too. But we finally did make it to Santiago. It was a beautiful time in the city. These are pictures inside the cathedral, and then some photos of us at dinner that night. And it was a lovely dinner. One of the best that I've had, both for the quality of the food and the company as well. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of our time together. And now I want to open it up to our distinguished panel. And I want to ask you all, and anyone is free to respond, what inspired you to walk this Camino? What did you imagine this experience would be like before you went on it?
And can you please all introduce yourselves as well before you
Yes.
speak? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Forrest. Can you hear me? What inspired me? Well, I was chair of the Spiritual Formation Council, and I figured that's, maybe I should do this. Secondly, I really am passionate about various spiritual practices, from the Labyrinth, Lectio Divina, a whole variety of practices, and I had never really heard of going on a pilgrimage before. So I was incredibly intrigued. So that was the inspiration. What did I anticipate? I did not pay attention at all to the elevation. Somehow I missed that in the brochure, and I thought it was going to be this sort of smooth, although long path.
Yeah.
And for me, the spiritual part was connected to the physical rigor. My mantra was, I can do hard things. And I think I shared that. And so it really became a meditative practice over the days as the miles got longer and longer, and I became more and more fatigued. I could think of nothing except one foot in front of the other. And so that was the beginning, and I'll just say, and it was my fellow pilgrims that helped me
Encourage you.
continue and go on the way.
Beautiful. Thank you. Who else wants to share? You can just bring it close to you.
All right. I'm Jacqueline Delphos. Can you hear? It's not on? It says it's on.
Oh, if you just click it.
Make sure that's up. Oh, yeah, it is.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That's much better. Wow, I feel like a rock star. Can you hear me now? Yes, I can hear
Great.
myself. Okay. I think what I just saw it in the bulletin, and there was something about it that just spoke to me. I too had never been on a pilgrimage before. I didn't really know what to expect, but there was something that, I guess, having gone through just a bunch of personal changes and recently moving here and what have you, I just felt called to it. And so I was like, well, just go to the meeting and see what it's about. And so, because I was like, if I've got to walk with a pack on my back with all my stuff and, like, I don't know, in camp, this is probably not going to be for me because that's not really me. So when Joe said that it was, we get to bring our bags down to the lobby and somebody transports those for us and we only need to have a day pack, I thought, and I don't need hiking boots, I'm in. So, no, so it just, I don't know, there was something about it that just was like, I want to try this physically. I've never done a pilgrimage and I don't know, it just felt like it was just something that spoke to me. Yeah, that's what kind of.
And what's your name?
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline? Thank you.
Hi. My name is Tony Yang. I'm a member here at the church. Years ago, a really dear friend of mine did the Camino, did the pilgrimage walk, and I think he did the extended, like the 30-day version of it. And I couldn't fathom what that was going to be like. And, years go by, and I find myself at my own personal crossroads in my life. I'm reaching of certain age, and I'm getting of certain status professionally and whatnot. And I realized I never gave myself time to pause and reflect inside because I'm always going and going and going while I'm here at home. So when Joe brought up the idea of a pilgrimage, I'm like, I'm in. I'm like, I don't even need to know the details. I'm in because this would be an opportunity for me to pause and think about other things in my life, spiritually, personally, everything other than dealing with the day-to-day issues. So I didn't really think about the physical part, and Jeannie could tell you about how we prepared for it. I didn't really think about the physical challenge. I figure, people have been doing it for years, so I should be able to do it. Spiritually, I just kind of went with an open agenda. I didn't set an expectation. I remember one of the questions I asked prior to going on the pilgrimage was, how many people come off of that disappointed because of the set of expectations they go into it with? So I tried not to set any expectations, and I just wanted to be in the moment, at the moment, during the journey. And it was, and we were just asking each other before this, if you had asked us the week of or the month of whether we'd do it again, we were like, nah. But just now, I think we all said absolutely. Yeah.
That's interesting. Thank you.
My name is Luke Beasley. I first heard about El Camino when I was studying abroad in Madrid in college, and I've always wanted to do that and been interested in it, so when I heard Fourth was doing it, I jumped at the chance. My expectations going into it would be that it would be a lot more focused on the destination and that being the ultimate goal. And in my personal experience, I felt like I identified a lot more with the journey and the process of it, and that it was more about the time spent and the way we spent each day than it was about getting to a particular goal.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to switch gears and ask you all a little bit about what a typical day was like for you, and maybe there was one day in particular that sticks out in your mind. What do you recall? What do you felt about how you felt what you ate, the conversations you had, what challenged you that day. So if you were to pick a particular day that really spoke to you about the deep meaning of the Camino, which day was it? And just take us through that day.
I think actually, I couldn't distinguish one day over another, other than one particular day when it was really rainy and windy. But that's just because of the weather. We start out, each morning all happy, and I got sick and tired of ham and cheese sandwiches. But what was amazing, every day just kind of blended in, but what was amazing is all the new strange faces you meet and encounter along the path every day. We started out 18 of us, half of us strangers, and actually we're lucky all 18 came back, right? Yep. But half of us were total strangers. And for me personally, I was especially happy because my college friend Angela, who doesn't belong to this church, I said, Angela, do you want to go? And she's like, I'm in. So we got to spend that journey together as well. But grace. Every day was marked by grace. And at the beginning of the journey, I have to admit, there were a couple people in our group who I rolled my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to annoy the crap out of me. But it turned out, I think it was day 2 or day 3, I was having a particularly, I was battling with my GI issues at that day. And I happened to be walking next to those 2 people that I rolled my eyes about. And they took one look at me and they're like, oh, you need help, don't you? I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, this is like serious business here. And they didn't think twice. No hesitation. They just stepped right up and made me feel comfortable, helped me help me to locate help and blah, blah, blah. And when I came back and they were still there waiting for me instead of going on, and I just broke down. I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's total strangers.
Thank you for sharing that. It reminds me that the Camino experience is so full of opportunities for strangers to become friends, and for everyday acts of heroism through hospitality. So being open to someone else, being willing to wait for someone else, to not be on your own journey and say, I want to make it to the next town by 4 p.m. Sorry, goodbye. The Camino's not like that. There are plenty of opportunities to stop, pause, help someone, and really feel refreshed by doing so. Anyone else want to share just a typical day or a particular day that stuck out to you?
Well, the part of the typical part was that you had an opportunity to spend long periods of time with various people on the group. And if you're walking for an hour or 2 with one person or 2 people, you end up sharing stories that perhaps you may not have if you just met each other. So we really got to learn lots of different stories from childhood onward. And it was a really unique way, I think, of connecting with each other. So I found that particularly refreshing and also full of grace, because there was moments, and I was one of the matriarchs of the group. There were people certainly could go much more quickly than moi, but there were people who felt, okay, I'll sit back with you, Jeannie. Let's just pull up the rear and we'll do this together. So I never felt like, oh my gosh, I am burdening someone because I can't walk as quickly as everyone else. So that was a real spiritual gift I found on the trail. The day that really stood out was the last day. The 8 hours in the rain, 40 degrees, soaking wet, and thinking, why am I doing this? But you made it. And it was one of those things where you really could do hard things. And it was not only the sense of accomplishment on some level, but it was that it really fulfilled a spiritual practice that I didn't know was possible. So yes, only a year later would I say I would do it again.
Yeah, I echo what you're saying on the just space for deep conversations. And one of my favorite days was day 2, when I really felt that started happening, because the first day you're getting to know everyone and starting to make those introductions. And by day 2, you really have time to just spend a couple hours or a few miles talking to someone. And, you know, it was great to be able to share stories, to learn stories, but I also felt that was how I was processing things that I was curious about on this pilgrimage. And really was this powerful spiritual experience for me to be able to just process things and learn things about myself while talking to others and learning about them. So I love those opportunities.
Let's see. A couple of funny things that stand out about a typical day was, Joe, how long is it going to take us to get to the next town? Every day. And it's like, well, it's going to depend on how fast we walk, how many stops we take, how long lunch is. But we went through this every day, and it got to be kind of comical. I was one of those that did not tire of the ham and cheese sandwiches, because for once I could eat all this bread and everything, and it didn't matter because I was walking so much. So I was like, this is the best kind of breakfast you could ever have. It's like, give me a sandwich. So I love that part of it. I think it was harder in some ways than I thought every day, but I was too had this mantra of like, I can do hard things, and this is why I wanted to do it. And so every day just was putting one foot in front of the other and doing that. And I think I had a lot that I wanted to kind of leave behind too. So I had a destination I wanted to get to and show myself that I could do this. But I also had stuff I wanted to let go. So it was really kind of neat to be able to like walk and have time with others, because I didn't know anybody except for our Zoom calls when we went. So it was really nice to get to know one another, and I love that part of it. But I also love that you had that space and that time if you wanted to walk on your own and just kind of let things go and think and just kind of take it all in. Because the scenery, like every day, was so different. Like 1 minute we would be in a field like you would see, like in the woods, and then the next we've got the vineyards. But then all of a sudden you're in this little tiny town, and you can see people's laundry like hanging in their backyard, or you're on this little road, and it just was fascinating. And you're like, really, the car can go on this? And sure enough, here comes this little tiny car whizzing through. So I mean, just kind of taking all that in, like every day you could see all of that in one day, and it was really it was really pretty amazing. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing it. You reminded me that I felt with you all that every day was an exercise in both truth telling, but also trying to encourage you in ways that required concealing truth. So it's like, we will make it. I felt a little bit like Abraham and walking Isaac up the mountain, saying, don't worry, God will provide. God will provide. We will make it. I don't exactly know how or when. Don't worry, we will make it. But you're also right that I think the experience of the Camino is both a communal and a solo one. And so as you're walking with others, and there's times of great story sharing and storytelling. And then also there's those times that you walk together in silence, and you kind of learn you can have friendships in which 2 people walk together, or 3 or 4, in silence, and just observe what's around you and listen for the Spirit in what's around you, and words aren't required. And so that's a beautiful thing too, when in so much of our daily lives we feel like words are required, or we need to rush in and say something. And you've got 6, 7, 8 hours of walking. You don't have to say everything all at once. There will be plenty of time. So there's that experience as well. I'm wondering, and you all have alluded to this a little bit already, but what did you most enjoy about your experience? What was most challenging?
Angela Anderson. I am, as Tony alluded to, I went to college with her, so we've known each other forever and a day. My favorite thing was really the feeling of family. So we would occasionally, some people had days where they took off, or they came in and joined us a little bit later in the day. And I would see these people that I had never met before, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to see you. Like, it was just like you were seeing somebody that was part of your family that you hadn't seen in forever. And that to me was just a really beautiful and amazing thing. One of the most challenging things for me, I was raised Catholic, so I'm one of the non-Presbyterians in the group, and I'm not an expert in Catholicism, but it's a bit of a rigid religion. And I had the opportunity to live overseas for a couple of years, and I encountered a lot of people of different faiths and different religions. And even within, my friends and family, I had people with very many different religions. And I didn't realize until the Camino how much I was struggling with some of the doctrine and some things that, I'd heard. Like, a lot of people would say, if you don't accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, you're going to hell. Well, and it was very interesting for me because I had the opportunity to talk to all of these religious leaders and others who didn't necessarily believe in hell. And hell is a very Catholic concept. Like, you're going. Unless you end up in heaven or purgatory, you're going to hell. And so it was really interesting to have the opportunity to talk to them. And everybody I would be asking the same questions, like, why does God do this? Why does God do that? And I would get, different answers. And so there was more flexibility and openness about the church and the religion than I had ever really experienced. And we got to, because I kept asking questions, and I'm sure I was annoying everyone. But I had one moment, and I am not really what you would call a touchy-feely person. And I had a moment where I'd been asking the questions, and then we were at one of the last stop before we got to the Santiago de Compostela, where I ran across some Catholics who happened to be from St. Louis that were on the pilgrimage. And I was asking them questions, and they viewed Catholicism a little bit differently. And they're like, it doesn't have to, we're trying, they were a little older, and they had a senior group there where they were really trying to broaden and make Catholicism a bit more encompassing and open and all of these things. And I lost it. Like, I was crying and bawling, like, my eyes out. I didn't even go to dinner that night. I was in my room for like an hour just crying in the shower. But it was so moving, and I felt this big release. Like, it's okay to have the questions. It's okay to doubt. Catholics, you're not supposed to doubt. So it was just a very moving and spiritual experience for me that I was not anticipating or expecting. And so that was what my biggest takeaway from it was, that in the community. Yeah. So I'm sorry that was long-winded, but...
Thank you. That was a powerful testimony, and I remember that day, and
Joe was there
those
that
conversations.
Day when I was crying.
They were very moving, and I didn't know where it would lead. But that's sort of the beauty of this experience, that it can open you up to emotions, thoughts, fears, doubts, concerns that have been lying underneath the surface of your life experience, or you may just not have the capacity to articulate well, and then they just come to the surface, and the Spirit does its work. And you don't know what day it'll happen, you don't know when it'll happen in your walk, or who will be there when it happens, but inevitably, if it needs to happen, it will happen. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share something you enjoyed most, something that challenged you in particular?
Actually, I too had an experience that I wasn't anticipating or planning on. And I saw that there was a photo earlier of a huge cross where people have deposited various objects along the way. And those places were everywhere along the route. And I mean, you've even seen, actually, there was a pair of shoes, as well as, and various rocks and other objects. And I thought about it, so along the route, I picked up a rock, I put it in my pocket, and I walked with it for a few days, and I wasn't sure why I did it. And during most of the routes, I was always with somebody for the most part. But at one day, I just kind of felt the rock in my pocket as I was walking, and I saw this place where everyone had deposited their rock. And I realized it was an opportunity for me to say goodbye to my father. And, wow. Yeah. And I didn't realize that I needed to do that until that moment. So, yeah, that was really totally unplanned, unanticipated, and it just gave me a great sense of release. And, yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Tony. Another example of just how powerful I think the experience can be for us personally.
That was a downer. Sorry.
No. It was powerful and transformative. That's what these journeys are about. Not just about getting from point A to point B, which, if you wanted to find the fastest route to Santiago, just get in a cab and get there, right? And actually, I mean, it proves the point of what pilgrimage is, right? That, like, sometimes we would get embarrassed at, like, how close we were to the next town if we had to stop because our bodies just wouldn't allow us to keep walking. And then, you hail that cab and you get in it and you go to the next town. And the next town's like a 5-minute drive. And you're like, all that? 5 minutes? I could have, surely I could have done that, right? But it's not about getting there as fast as you can. It's about the journey. It's about how you walk, how you make your way to these different towns, what you encounter and do along the way. And probably for me, I think the most challenging part was experiencing the Camino as a facilitator and a group leader, not as a pilgrim as I've done in the past. So in the past, I've done a portion of the Camino Francis and with my own college friend, and that itself was a very different experience than creating a pilgrimage experience for each of you. And part of that was realizing that at various points in the Camino experience, our bodies could not do what we wanted them to do. And so the theological and the very practical question that kept rising in my mind is, what do you do when your body fails you? And I've been thinking about this in the broader context of church and society. What do we do when the church fails us? What do we do when our society fails us? What do we do when things go wrong and there's suffering in our experience, collectively or individually, that we can't easily undo? And so the Camino experience was a wrestling with that reality. There were folks who had injuries along the way, had to take a rest day, and then they had to figure out, well, wait a second, what am I going to do? I thought I was going to walk the whole way into Santiago, so their expectations had to change. And they had to figure out, what do you do when you're not ambulatory and you've got to sit around all day? Are you still having a pilgrimage experience? The answer is yes. But you have to contend with, what does it mean for your body to fail you? So that was a big challenge. Lastly, I want to ask, what did you all learn about yourselves, others and God that you'd want to share today?
I think I learned about myself that I can do hard things, and that it's good to take risks, and it's good to get outside your comfort zone, and do different things and challenge yourself, because that's just life. It's just going to keep moving, and you can't sit still and let it pass you by, or you'll, I don't know, that's kind of how I feel about it, and you just have to do it. I didn't think I could walk that far or do that. I'm not a hiker. I mean, I had brand new shoes. People are like, wow, those are brand new. I'm like, they are. And I mean, it's not that I don't exercise, but I don't go out and walk, and I don't do that. And so it was like, yeah, I can do this. All right, okay, this is good. But the thing I learned is while I could physically do it, I couldn't do all that on my own. And so I had my fellow pilgrims with me, so even if I was walking alone, I was walking with them, and they were with me, as well as everybody else that was on that. I think one of the coolest things was that you'd see people, and it was always like Buen Camino, and it was like, it was like good Camino, and everybody you just said that to each other as you passed them, so it's like you were all doing it together, and in that knowing that, sometimes you do kind of think you're alone, but you're really not, and you have a community, and God is always with you no matter what. And I guess those were all my kind of takeaways. So.
I learned a lot about bravery from all the people on the Camino with me. When you hear their stories and their life experiences, and they're there, and they're thriving, and they're surviving, and it's an amazing thing, because you don't really necessarily get a lot of opportunities to know what is deep down haunting people or what they've gone through. And so it was just very uplifting from that standpoint. There was one woman on the Camino with us who her feet looked horrible from blisters cracking open and everything, and she was obviously in a great deal of pain and never once complained. Like, the entire time, she was the most uplifting person, and I'm like, that's just amazing. Like, there's so much bravery and so much grace amongst the people that were there, and I think that's one of the biggest takeaways for me is, be brave and go through life with grace and be kind to others.
Thank you.
Well, I kind of echo with both of you say, but I think it was a very visual, physical and spiritual experience to show me that there will be life challenges ahead. That's not going to not happen. But together we did it, collectively. And so even though you may go through your own pain going forward, you can call on each other. Yeah. And I feel like I can do that now. And God is there. That felt so unshakable. But it was the reinforcement from the troops that made it happen.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. I don't know if I necessarily learned anything, but it deepened my understanding and my appreciation for how much I appreciate my faith and this church community. And just the power of the community in that experience was really impactful.
Again, I'm going to go back to grace. And let me say one thing, though. Don't let these people scare you. It wasn't all that difficult either, okay? It's very doable, absolutely doable. You just have to put up with some bad weather, some sand, some nature and whatnot, but it's all very doable. Everyone did it at their own pace. It wasn't a race. There's no competition. So you take your time and you do it. And then if you can't finish the day, there's a car that comes and picks you up and takes you to the next destination. So age, gender, size, level of activity, it's all doable, universal. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
What Tony didn't say, she was also practicing or training for the triathlon at the same time. So I think you left that out.
Well, there's lots of training you can do, and stretching is a key thing. I think we learned that too. And so in the next experience, whenever that comes, I'm going to definitely recommend a stretching regimen each morning and before our Camino. I did want to share reflections, beautiful reflections briefly, from our fellow pilgrim, Carol Carpenter, who's currently singing in the choir this morning, and so she couldn't join us. But she had an amazing journey as well, and so I want to just share with you some of her insights that she captured on video.
Hi, I'm Carol. Joe asked me to share a couple minutes of reflections about my experience on the Camino. Standing outside because I thought that would be kind of appropriate. And it's a little windy, but beautiful day. So what inspired me to do the trip was I had talked several years ago with the sister of a friend of mine, and she and her husband had done the trip. And it sounded like a wonderful experience, and that's what got me interested in it in the first place. As it happened, a few months before we left, something happened in my life which was really pretty difficult. And I thought to myself, well, maybe it's a good opportunity to get away from my usual routine, have a different perspective, be able to think about some things and where I want to go from here. So those were the things that really inspired me. In terms of a meaningful days on the trip, there were several. The trip took a lot of different kinds of terrain. There, we walked through towns, we walked through countryside, we walked through forest. I guess in my mind, I just had this vision of it being all through the countryside, but it was through all different kinds of areas. What I loved the most was walking through the woods. We had a couple of days in particular where we spent a lot of time walking through kind of foresty areas, woodsy areas, and it was magical. It really was. I felt it was exhausting, but the being in the forest really, I found, gave me some energy that the other areas that we walked through just didn't have. Being in the woods with the trees, it was not only beautiful, but I found it was just really life-giving, and it was pretty amazing. I sprained my foot during the trip, which of course I wasn't expecting, and it turned out to not be a terrible thing, really. Even though it impeded my walking, I wasn't able to walk as much as I otherwise would have. It also gave me the opportunity to do a couple of things that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do otherwise. So I wouldn't say I'm glad I sprained my foot, but it did give me some different sort of experience on the trip, which I'm actually really grateful for. Another thing that I found really meaningful, of course, and I'm sure a lot of people will say this, was the last day. I wasn't able to walk the entire route that day, but it was important to me to do the last leg. And there were a couple of people in the group, especially, who helped me get through that, because every step was painful with my sprained foot. And a couple of people in particular helped me get through that. I couldn't have gotten to the end without them, and I'm very grateful. And when you walk into that plaza and you see that cathedral and you're there with people you've been walking with, and you see other people who are completing their trips, it's a pretty amazing experience. The last day of our trip was chilly and rainy, so if you're thinking about doing the trip, definitely be prepared that the weather will not always be perfect. We were drenched. But walking into that cathedral, I've seen other European cathedrals, but this one was kind of unique. It's kind of unique in the way that it looks and certainly the way that you experience it if you've been walking. And going in there, getting out of the rain, being able to sit and rest my foot, but also saying some prayers, lighting a candle. It was a pretty wonderful experience. So hopefully this has given a few interesting reflections, and if you're thinking about the trip, I would recommend doing it. It's be open to whatever the trip holds for you. Buen camino.
Buen camino. So that's our presentation. I know the room quickly needs to get turned over for the next event, but if you have questions, I'm sure we could gather right outside and we'd be glad to answer questions that you might have. Thank you for letting us share.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Thank you.